5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for allowing me to waive on to this committee. And I would certainly be remiss if I did not mention that one of my good friends in Congress has been Garrett Graves, and he, of course, has announced that he is retiring, not going to be back with us, and we are obviously losing a lot of institutional knowledge there, and certainly wish him well. But I'm going to miss my friend, at least seeing him all the time, more often, but I'm sure I'll continue to see him. I have the honor and privilege of representing the entire coast of Georgia, over 100 miles of pristine coastline. We have two major seaports, the Port of Savannah that was just mentioned, the number 3 container port in the country, the Port of Brunswick, the number 2 roll-on, roll-off port in the country. You know, we have 14 barrier islands in the state of Georgia. There are a lot of differences in the state of Georgia and the coast of Georgia and the coast of Louisiana, but there are a lot of similarities as well. You know, we were talking earlier today about the tide swings, and we have some of the largest tide swings in the United States on the coast of Georgia. We have an average of 7 feet, which is significant. We have a lot of marshland. So there are a lot of differences there, but there are a lot of similarities as well. You know, some of the differences have been mentioned. You know, y'all get 77 days to fish for red snapper. We get 1 day. We've won the national championship 2 out of the last 3 years. Y'all haven't. A lot of differences. I'm just saying there's just differences. That's all I'm saying. But nevertheless, there are a lot of similarities. Mr. Heck, you know, we got shrimpers in McIntosh County that I represent who depend on the ocean for their livelihood. We've got recreational boaters. We've got boat tours. We've got protected wetlands. And I mentioned the seaports. And we understand how important they are to the economic drivers as economic drivers. The Georgia ports are the economic engine of the southeast United States. They really are. And full disclosure, I've got also invested in this community. I've got 2 granddaughters in Metairie and a 3rd one on the way. I tried to warn my son about marrying a Catholic girl, but anyway, they got another one on the way, and they are precious. I'm concerned. I want to see South Louisiana flourish and do well. But tell me about the importance of maintaining coastal areas and how that drives economic growth.
I've been able to spend a lot of time on the coast, not because of my job, but also because my wife is doing a PhD studying coastal economies and the populations that live there. And when you look at the wealth that's produced in energy, in agriculture, in aquaculture, the military that's there, which is also an economic driver as well as keeping us safe. And then tourism. I'm going to be going down tonight. I was just informed via text to the Tarpon Rodeo down in Plaquemines Parish. It's a literal and figurative wealth. And again, I go back to my earlier point. There's a reason why humans have lived near water throughout the millennia. It's because that's where commerce happens. So the idea that we're crazy for living there or that we can just leave is a naive idea, and it's a dangerous idea.
Right.
And we actually have to think about it the other way. What policies can we implement to help people to stay in a way that's affordable and productive, and that's what will ultimately serve the social good.
That's good. And you know, the funding that makes it possible, if it weren't for offshore energy development, we wouldn't have funding to make it possible. For instance, Savannah, my hometown, the largest historical district in the nation. New Orleans has a large historical district. Funds from offshore drilling and offshore energy production help support that historical development. That's very important as well. I think you would agree.
Yeah, I mean, the stat that we use in Louisiana, just relative to the general treasury, is that a $1 increase in the price of a barrel of oil equals $12 million to the treasury. That goes towards things like infrastructure. So there's a very direct connection.
Absolutely. And I want to get to this, Mr. Graham, because you mentioned it, and this is important. I serve on the Energy and Commerce Committee, and I'm chair of the Environmental Subcommittee. We have jurisdiction over EPA. You mentioned permitting. As I go through this country, no matter what sector of our economy you're talking about, whether it be energy, healthcare, or whatever, it's always the same. Permitting, regulations, they're crushing us, crushing us. You've had that experience here, I see.
Yes, sir. Permitting is part of the timeline, but the more complex the project, it seems to be, the more complex the questions and the comments we get on it, and the more that folks are asked to do. And at some point, they just throw up their hand and say, yeah, whatever it costs, let's get this thing done.
Or they try not to have any federal participation at all so they can avoid the permitting. And that's
always the
impossible
first
in
option.
many
Yeah.
ways.
It's not, especially in the coastal areas and in the valleys where the waterways are, it's very difficult to avoid
Right.
in most cases. So you do end up with needing to go through the permitting process.
Well, please know that on the coast of Georgia, you have a friend and someone who understands what you're going through and someone who is advocating for you and hopes that you're successful and want to make sure you're successful. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll yield back.